Well, everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And I think this is a very special episode for both myself and my guest, Nick, who's joining me for the first time on my channel, as we're talking about Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. But Nick, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
And give you a chance to introduce yourself a little bit, shamelessly plug whatever you'd like to shamelessly plug.
Sure. Well, I'm a contributing writer for SiftPop. That's how I got in contact with you there. You can follow me on Twitter at Jagged2319, and I'm also on Letterboxd. I like to review stuff on there, just usually short little blurbs. Although you can tell when I really like something on Letterboxd because I go a little off sometimes. There are paragraphs and paragraphs, but. Yeah, you can follow me there. But yeah, I really enjoy writing for SiftPop, and I'm really excited to chat Indiana Jones today.
Absolutely. And I'm in the middle of writing an article for one of the websites that I do. I'm just getting so excited to talk about this because I know for me personally, this is my favorite Spielberg movie on my lovely long train of Spielberg movies that'll take me until the end of December. Because he is an illustrious director who has done plenty over the course of his career. And for those who haven't tuned the show before, we have 3 segments. We start off with coming attractions, which this is releasing for the weekend of July 22nd. And then we'll talk about Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade, and then gets to some recommendations for all of you to check out. But with the coming attractions, so for the 22nd, we have one big theatrical release, which arguably is one of the last 2 biggest movies to be coming out this summer, which is Nope from Jordan Peele. I feel like the only other high-profile movie coming out is Bullet Train, and then it's just like August. And then we also have the Russo brothers, The Gray Man, coming out on Netflix, because that did come out in theaters somewhere this past weekend, and a couple little things. But Nick, what are you most excited for?
I think I'd have to go with The Gray Man. I am disappointed that we aren't getting any. My area isn't getting a theater release for it, but I'll have to make do. And Gray Man is definitely up there for me because it's just between the cast and the Russo brothers directing, the subject matter, it seems like a really fun action movie that just kind of has everything that, and I'll pretty much watch anything with Ana de Armas at this point. So you put her in a movie, boom,
if I had $1 for every time I've heard that statement in the past like 3 years, I could retire.
Yeah, right.
she is killing it and everything. And there is very few times, because like I'm not big on like, let's make a bunch of James Bond spinoffs and stuff like that, because it's like it's always about James Bond. But not gonna lie, after I watched No Time to Die, I'm like, I want more of her. I want her to have her own movie.
Oh yeah, after Knives Out, I was the same way. It was Knives Out that hooked me. I'm like, oh, I'll see whatever she's in. And then I fell in love with her after No Time to Die. Like, oh my goodness, why wasn't she in more of this movie?
Right? She was great in that. And yeah, she was great in Knives Out. And I would love to see more of her in the sequel, but obviously that's not the approach that the series is going to be going. Yeah. We're just going to get way more Benoit Blanc. But I'm honestly, when I heard that this was Ryan Gosling versus like Chris Evans in like a spy thriller, I'm like, okay, you got my attention. Then you see what Chris Evans looks like with that mustache and that hair. I'm just like, he 100% looks like he's some kind of government person, some kind of assassin. I'm excited to see what he does now that he isn't just Captain America. And now he might be tagging in Ryan Gosling because it sounds like he's desperately trying to get into a Marvel movie. We'll have to see there. But I get excited whenever I see like a new action movie that isn't just, superhero movie. Because like more or less I'm a huge action movie fan. So basically, unless it's John Wick or Mission Impossible, it's not a whole lot like going on outside of big blockbusters. So it's exciting to see something like this coming, or well, I guess James Bond too. Unless it's a giant franchise, we're not seeing a whole lot of these kind of movies coming out.
Yeah, for some reason they just don't want to make them anymore, and they're really fun when you do them right.
I feel like it's, you could just invest all that money in making a comic book movie and make like hundreds of millions of dollars. So they're kind of like, well, might as well just do that.
True.
Good for you, Netflix. At least thinking this while you're still around, because it seems like they're not doing so hot lately. So
is it good for you, Netflix, or wow, it looks like you might have got lucky there, Netflix, greenlighting everything like you do?
I don't know. All that green lighting's not doing them so hot right now. So I don't think we're going to be seeing a whole lot of that. But I'm sure we'll keep seeing some more action comedies starring Kevin Hart and Woody Harrelson, stuff like that.
Did you see that yet?
I did. I got a screener for that, actually. I was kind of shocked. It just popped up in my Netflix one day. I'm like, what? And then I found out later the actual email they sent me went to spam. So I'm just like, okay, they're just going to drop this into my for your consideration section. And then I checked it. I'm like, it was from the same director as like The Hitman's Bodyguard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like basically the only enjoyment I got out of those movies was just Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson and Selma Hayek. So I'm like, well, if the actors aren't killing it, then this is going to be really dumb and stupid. And it's Kevin Hart, and I'm not the biggest Kevin Hart fan, so I'm just like, well, he's whining like a baby, and he's doing his Kevin Hart thing.
Is it like a Red Notice, or is it better than that?
Worse.
Oh, darn.
I enjoyed Red Notice more than I enjoyed this one. So that's the thing. They're both just like generic as hell action movies that you just hope that people watch because they have humongous names in them. So, I guess that's another one of Netflix's formulas for things.
Well, that knocks it down a little bit lower on my list. I was going to maybe check it out this weekend.
I don't know. Maybe check it out, see how you feel. But like, I'm not the hugest fan of that director. And he also did like Expendables 3. And I'm just like,
okay.
Not a great track record for me. When Mel Gibson is like the most enjoyable thing in your movie in like the 2000 teens and 20s, you probably aren't doing a whole lot that's great. So that's a problem. But the other film that is my most anticipated that's also coming out this weekend is Nope, which I honestly wish I did not see the most recent trailer. Because, like, honestly, that first trailer, I'm like, I'm perfectly happy. I don't need to know anything else about this. Honestly, it could have just been that original teaser where it's just like Jordan Peele, nope. And I'm like, well, you got me. I don't need to know anything else because I feel like his films work better if you go in not knowing what the hell's going on, because that's kind of the whole point of them. But we'll have to see. But what are your thoughts on Nope coming out?
I'm very excited. I really loved Us, and I liked Get Out a lot too. So when I saw that first teaser, like you said, that was enough for me. I didn't need anything else. And then I saw the next trailer about 100 times because they put it in front of every movie coming out for like the last 6 months.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough. I did not see the newest one because when I get to the theater, I usually get there at the right time or a little bit later. So it's usually one of the first trailers and I usually miss it.
Okay.
So I have been lucky enough not to see it. I'm glad I didn't, if you're saying it's got a lot of too much in it, but
it's like you definitely have a lot better sense of what you think the movie might be about. Gotcha. And to be fair, it could actually not be what you think it's about because it is a Jordan Peele.
You never know with him, yeah.
So, because like it has a lot more in it, but I really don't think you needed any more in it besides the first trailer. But they're not trying to sell these movies to us who watch a lot.
Yeah, I really like how the title Nope is also an anagram, or not an anagram, but an acronym for Not of Planet Earth.
Yep.
That's exactly the kind of cleverness that he does, and so I'm really, really looking forward to what's going to be the thing about this movie? What's the social commentary, or what's the fun Twilight Zone-esque atmosphere that you're going to create with this one?
Because it has to be more than it's just about aliens. Like
You would think.
it has to be. And honestly, the first time I saw that trailer, all I could think was like aliens.
Right.
And well, we're gonna see what happens. And you know, I really, because like I'm probably gonna go see it Saturday. I might have to avoid social media a lot just because like I don't want people ruining anything for me. Like this is on that level of like, no, if something gets ruined for me, that takes a lot out of the fun of one of his movies. So here's the hoping that he hits another home run. Because honestly, I was a humongous fan of Us. I know that one was a little bit more divisive than Get Out was for a lot of
Yeah.
people, but I loved it. I thought
I
it was
did
great.
too. It was one of those, if you're willing to go with them on this crazy idea, then you're gonna have a great time. Like the second you start picking it apart, then it becomes too weird.
Yeah, my friend was like, "Where'd they get all the jumpsuits?" I'm like,
Right? And the gloves. Who
"Doesn't
feeds
matter.
them?
Just stop it.
Where's
Just
the rabbit? What happens when they run out of rabbits?
just stop right there." But honestly, one of the biggest laughs I feel like I had in a theater in a long time was Alexa Call the Police. And
Yes.
playing F the Police. I'm just like, oh no. And that scene, because like I did not expect where that movie was going, that it was that broad. And I'm just like, holy crap. So I'm interested to see where Nope goes, but we'll leave it
The
at that.
first time I saw Us, I was like freaked. It creeped the hell out of me. But then I saw it again the second time, and I'm like, oh, it's not scary at all, because it's not a scary movie. But it was just, it's so interesting how just two viewings of a movie can completely change the way you see it. And the more I've seen it since, the more I like it.
Absolutely. But now for something completely different, which is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which, God, I was just rewatching this morning. And when they ride off into the sunset, I'm just like,
It's a fist pump moment.
why didn't it end here?
What are you talking about? It did end there. That was the end of the trilogy. It's a fantastic trilogy that ends perfectly if you ride off into the sunset.
Yep, could have ended there. I'm hopeful because I really like James Mangold. I'm just
too.
like, and
Did
what
you
was
see
funny is
the behind the sets shots of the guy wearing the Harrison Ford mask on the motorcycle? I'm like, oh God, I hope this looks good in real time.
oh, I just feel like, and I was even sitting and watching this movie, and you know, they get to the temple of like the crescent moon and everything, and I'm just admiring the set, and I'm just like, the wonders you can make in film when you don't just CGI everything.
Right? They
And
really don't
then
make them like they used to anymore.
no, and then I got all like, back in my day, which isn't even my day. I wasn't even born yet when this movie came out. It's just like, I feel like CGI has helped so many things become a reality, but then has just become such a giant crutch. Because like you watch these movies and like, there's definitely some shots that are like obviously in front of a screen. You know, Henry Jones Sr. shooting the machine gun in the plane, you know, it's like he's sitting in a box or something.
Do you have this on 4K?
I have it on Blu-ray.
I just got the 4K Steelbooks for Father's Day,
Okay.
and I popped it in for the first time to rewatch, and I have to say, scenes like that do kind of stand out from the age of the stuff, all looked really good. Like when the guy falls down the cliff with the tank, I was normally that it's like, oh well, you could see how they did that, but it looked so much cleaner, and just everything about it, like the scene with the Crescent Moon Valley, really stood out to me as like, wow, that looks so much crisper than it did. It's just it's insane how these up-res movies just look so much better now.
Even on the Blu-ray, watching the sequence, like, and this is one of my favorite things about this film. There's so many great close-up shots of people. And one of my favorites is after Henry Jones Sr. does the and like takes out an airplane with a bunch of seagulls, and he's like walking, he's like, I remember my Charlemagne, and just like walks by, and then the camera just slowly zooms in on Indy's face, and you can see his eyes welling up a bit, and like a little smile coming over his face. Like that close up just looks so beautiful. I'm just like, such a great shot. And that's just Steven Spielberg in a nutshell, because he can capture those moments. And backing up, so obviously, joking aside, this was the third of going to be 5 Indiana Jones movies, if they stop there. But we'll see. But this is really the conclusion of a trilogy in the 80s before, like how many, almost 20 years later, they made a sequel. And, Temple of Doom is actually a prequel, which I guess you only really realize that if you're paying attention to the dates that pop up on the screen. And this feels like the most fluid follow-up to Raiders of the Lost Ark. We have Nazis back again. We have some adventuring to do again. We're globetrotting. And the magic of this film is they trade in a romance. They almost trick you into thinking that this movie is going to be about a romance and trade it in for a father-son movie.
Yeah.
And boy, was that the best choice ever. Because I know for me, that's what really makes this film stand out so much to me. But Nick, what are some of the things that you love most about this film?
Well, this was the first Indiana Jones movie I ever saw. It came out when I was 4, and my dad had originally taped them off of TV, but this was one where we got like the actual box set like very early on. And that's actually when I found out that the Temple of Doom was a prequel, because on the box set itself, it actually said the year that the thing took place. And it always was like, what? It takes place before? That's so crazy. But I watched this one on repeat. Although we did tend to watch, we would do trilogy watches, where it's like Saturday, Sunday, we'd watch all 3 movies between the 2 days. But the ones, Raiders and Temple of Doom, when I was a kid, just didn't appeal to me as much. Raiders, obviously, I think it's the better movie, but just, I mean, in the sense that he made it first and it was revolutionary at the time. He's doing all the same things here, and I think he's improving upon them. He's taking that rough cut that first time he did it, he improves upon it in the second one, and now he's like a master at this. Like, so everything in Last Crusade, to me at least, is just perfect. And it's funnier than the other two. It's definitely more of a comedy. The chemistry between Connery and Ford is just perfect. You were mentioning that he gives that face, and it's just a really nice shot of his face. He gives so many faces. His Harrison reacts is fantastic throughout this entire movie. Every time Sean Connery says something, he has the perfect look. Like, he's like, oh, I broke it. Oh, but it's fake. And he's like, it's fake? Like, that's what you're concerned about? Or when she tells him, like, it was really good for me too, and they both say thank you, and Harrison's just like, what? Like, he's so great in this movie, and just the two of them bouncing off of each other, it gets better every time you watch it.
What is so magical too about, like, I made this comment watching it to my wife, I'm like, they're 12 years difference in age, but obviously, like, Sean Connery, like, went 0 to 50 age-wise in like the late 70s, when he just stopped caring about wearing the toupee that he had worn for years, and then just let his beard grow in, and there's a bunch of gray in it. So, like, it works so well that they have that father-son dynamic. And I swear, like, I made a joke that I wish I could get a chance before he passed away to ask Sean Connery one question. And that question was, what was the most fun you ever had making a movie, and why was it Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade? Because from what I understand, he was a very, very intense professional person on set. Like I heard, like I think it was the Cinephiles I was listening to the episode about Hunt for Red October, and like Alec Baldwin had made comments about just how professional Sean Connery was when he showed up on set. But like you never see Sean Connery like this in like anything else. He's just so at times very lighthearted. He has his moments, and you can feel like, oh, when he's holding Indiana's hand, he's just like, Indiana. And just like that, like, let it go. And just like that moment where he just turns on just that presence and intensity is just like, damn.
Right.
Sean Connery was something else on screen, but like him being like silly and just like a quirky old like historian is hilarious. And like they frump him up in his like wool suit and like that cap that he has on and everything. And it just that whole entire sequence where like you first see him and he hits him with the vase and he's just like, look what you made me do. And just like, what a shame. He's like, and he's like, Dad. And he's just like, oh, it's okay, son. And he's like, it's so fake. Just like that exchange just pitch perfect. And then when they start yelling at each other, and there's a couple of faces that he makes at Harrison Ford, like that whole sequence, which like as somebody who didn't really have a relationship with their dad until they were an adult, because like I've only really had a good strong relationship with my dad probably for the past 6 years, and like I'm 30. That moment where he's just like, we never talked about anything, and he's like, okay, at the time,
let's talk. What do you want to talk about? Yeah,
and he just has that face at him, and like I know that feeling where it's just like I don't even know where to start, to be honest. It's just like, what do you do in this situation? And I love that. And then he gets so excited, it's like, we have work to do, and he like brings a diary over, and they can connect with that. And what I love so much about Raiders and this is the characters, and why Temple of Doom is lower for me, because there's certain characters I absolutely despise. And not from like I'm supposed to kind of thing. Because like obviously you're supposed to hate the Nazis in these movies. But like there's certain characters like I can't even stand watching you on screen. You're so annoying. But like everybody in this movie plays their roles so perfectly. Harrison Ford and Sean Connery are pitch perfect. And one of my favorite supporting characters in any movies is Sala, and John Rhys Davies is just such a delight in both Raiders and this. So glad they brought him back in this movie.
Oh, me too. That scene with him and Brody in the marketplace when he's just like, papers, yes, hold on, boom, and Brody's just like, what's going on?
That's one of the most interesting choices is they completely dumbed down Brody. Because like if you remember him from Raiders of the Lost Ark, he's like a pretty serious
suave, serious guy. Yeah.
And no, he's a bumbling idiot in this movie.
Yes, he is. He got lost in his own museum.
That whole thing where he's like, Brody's been to this many countries, knows this many languages, and they cut.
Hello, does anybody here speak English or perhaps ancient Greek?
It's just like, oh, and like it is true. This movie's a lot funnier than any of the other two, but this has to be some of Spielberg's best comedy. Like it just feels so organic in the story and the characters and just everything about it. And I love a good like editing for the sake of like humor and feeling. Like there's so many great edits here. I think one of the best edits and one of my favorite edits in a movie is after that amazing opening sequence, which I think we'll talk about in a second, when that archaeologist or raider or however you want to refer to him puts that hat on Indy's head, and then he looks up and it's Harrison Ford. It's just like, yes. That's movie magic right there.
Yeah, it's great.
and it's just like, it belongs in a museum. So do
So
you.
you.
So great. But what are your thoughts on like that opening sequence where we get young Indiana Jones?
I loved it. I always find that to be fun, especially growing up as a kid watching this. It was like, hey, he's a kid like me,
Yeah.
and I loved it so much. And it's from the moment because he's so calm and cool, and he goes in, he steals the thing, and then he's on top of the train before you know it, and he's just it's a chase. It's a
Yep.
fun chase. And as a kid, you used to always chase your friends and get away with stuff and run away and get caught, and that's part of the game. And like they always keep it light and fun. There's never a sense that he's in any danger, but like at the same time, he's in a lot of danger. And he could have gotten eaten by a snake, a lion. He could have gotten gored by a rhino. It's so much fun. It's pure joy on screen from the moment that chase starts. And I laughed watching it this most recent time because I'm like, that's how he got his whip, and that's how he got his hat, and that's how he got his fear of snakes. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this whole 10-minute sequence is the movie Solo, all in one 10-minute sequence. But like they do it so well. It's like before there was trying to retcon all the things, like this was just a fun opening sequence that just is like, and this is, a time he found out that whips were useful, and it's how he got his scar on his chin.
Yeah.
It's just
And
fun.
what's so great, and they set up that the father-son dynamic in like no time at all. Just from him walking in and his father's like, count to 10.
Count to
1,
10
2.
in Greek.
In Greek. And it's just like, what a power move.
Right?
His dad. And it's just like, and that relationship right like that. And that is one of the most efficient opening sequence to a movie, trying to set, like you said, is this movie Solo in like 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it so perfectly. And going to John Williams' score, he is on fire in that opening sequence, because you have like the Raiders march, and then you have the like him running down from like the cave and everything. Yeah.
It's like so lighthearted and fun.
Yep.
But and then it goes that dun dun dun, and it's like, oh yes, run.
And the ever so slight callback to the whole Tomb of Snakes from Raiders, right when he like sees the snakes below him, and you could hear the change of music for like a couple of beats, and you're just like, John Williams just weaving in and out here just so perfectly. And like you said, that fist in the air moment at the end with the Raiders march playing, and that whole entire sequence after they get out of that temple is just like, it's like, you're named after the dog. And then John Price Davies just
really like that dog,
the big laugh, and then Brody's like, away, and like almost falls off his horse.
I know
like,
the way, follow me.
And he's just like lost in his own museum. Yep. And then they all run off, and like just the music swelling as they're literally riding off into the sunset. I'm like, this is the most beautiful ode to just like, because that's what Indiana Jones was an ode to a completely forgotten era of serials and adventure films. And we don't even have them today anymore. Like, this was such an interesting catch. Like, the closest thing we've ever gotten to like that swashbuckling adventuring was like the Pirates movies before they got like
Pirates of the Caribbean 1 is the movie that reminds me the most of Indiana Jones, and it's probably one of the reasons why it's so high up on my favorites of all time, because they nail that feeling down. And I wish that they had continued that, because somebody needs to come up with a new franchise or something, and they keep trying. Like Uncharted just wasn't it, and other movies like it.
I know they tried to make John Carter work, but like at that, it was
John Carter was too early I think you make John Carter today, or you make it a Disney Plus series, or you do something, you make it serialized on HBO, and John Carter is the most popular thing ever. But
I think the tricky
when it
thing
came
is,
out, it was just not a good time.
I think it was tricky too because like everybody's like, this is just a rip off of a whole bunch of things. When honestly, all those things were a rip off
Rip
of
off of
John
it,
Carter because like this book series is like over 100 years old.
right?
But that's a tricky thing about timing and pop culture and when things come out. But yeah, I would kill for something like Indiana Jones. And like I know they really did try with Uncharted, and I think besides Pirates, that like 99 Mummy movie
Oh
is
yeah,
just so much fun.
that
It's
was
just,
that was the other one. Yeah,
and then they try to reboot that too with that whole dark universe, and just like no,
didn't
turd.
work.
Just like no, this didn't work.
I mean,
And it's a
honestly, the Marvel movies are the closest we've gotten to the, or not all of them, but some of them, like Iron Man, definitely has that adventure-esque feel to it. Like, but that's about it. Like, we really haven't gotten anywhere near this same level of excitement and adventure.
yeah, and that's the thing. And like that's I guess that's why they tried to make a fourth one. They're just like, well, nobody's making these kinds of movies, and then they
Hmm.
just blew it up with all kinds of CGI, and nobody wanted Shia LaBeouf to replace Indiana Jones, and just
We
I
keep
don't
talking
know.
about this fourth movie. I don't know.
I wonder who's gonna help me with that non-existent fourth movie when I get around to doing this. And
I
not
don't
even
think I've seen it since it came out on DVD. I think that's the last that was it's been almost like 15 years now. Like I probably should give it another chance.
like I enjoy it, but it's not a great movie. And when you're an Indiana Jones movie, you should be great. Like you're
Yeah.
made by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and all these other movies are great. And like Temple of Doom has its issues as it's aged poorly.
Yeah.
Um, can't go wrong with Nazis.
No, you really
Easy
can't.
villains, right?
They're
And
they're they're pretty bad all the time. Like I don't know. Even today,
hey, uh,
apparently you have
nervous
to
laughing in
remind people.
2022. Uh, but like that's the thing. It's
FYI.
yeah, and I feel like that's probably why they went back to like Nazis
Yeah.
in Last Crusade because I I don't I feel like Steven Spielberg took quite a few chances in the mid '80s because like even with the color purple, doesn't really feel like a perspective that he really has like the best grasp of. I don't think he has like the best grasp of like Indian culture. And it was probably like, you know what? Let's go back to like, he's a Jewish man. Let's fight some Nazis. And it's just like, that makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense. And, I'm sure people, and you even mentioned it too, it's like it does a lot of the same things that Raiders does, but I do really think he's stepping up everything in every aspect. And I feel like that opening, the relationship between him and his father, and also the really good humor in this film elevate this movie so much because it does have what Raiders is and then more. And, there's just some great moments and like Spielberg subtly puts in horror elements into a lot of his movies and like that whole entire sequence in like the Temple of the Crescent Moon trying to get to the Grail with the whole
Yeah.
penitent man will pass like like head roll.
Decapitations and
Yeah.
blood everywhere. Like he does that well. He makes it so that not only is this an adventure movie, but we're going to scare you a little. We're going to make
Mm,
you laugh. We're going to freak you out. We're going to make sure you have a good time. I think the best Spielberg movies all have different elements of that. Like look at
yeah.
E.T., like that scene where E.T. is you think he's dead and it's like he doesn't immediately bring him back. He makes you sit in it and it's like, "Oh my God, like
Oh,
this
the
is
second they find him in the
horrifying."
gutter in
Right?
ET, and it's just like
Like it's scary sometimes and I think that's part of what makes those older movies so much better than what we get today because now now they can't even start a movie at the start. They have to start it at the end to then be like, don't worry, we're gonna get exciting. You just have to wait for it. Like, audiences aren't that dumb. Like, we can sit through, although maybe not. I don't know, but sometimes like,
Fair.
I watch some of the things my kids watch that they really enjoy, and it's like maybe audiences aren't that smart anymore, and they do just need to be spoon fed things. But
It's so interesting because like with ET and Close Encounters, especially Close Encounters, ET's only for like probably the first 20 something minutes. You might think these aliens are there to harm you and you should be afraid of them. And you feel that. And like when they introduce ET in that spotlight, you're like, should I be afraid? There's an air to that. And then obviously we get to know ET, and then no, we shouldn't be afraid of ET. We are afraid of those government people though. they're scary. But like the moment when they get into like the Grail room, and I love this scene so much. And Nick, have you ever watched a regular show?
no, I have not.
Oh my God. So there's a whole entire, which is funny because my wife watched regular show before she saw any Indiana Jones. And there's actually a gag in it where they're like in this breakfast place and they have to eat a whole bunch of eggs, and they get into this back room to get like this hat for winning. And it's the Crusade night. And it's just a whole bunch of hats. And when he picks the right hat, he's like, you chose excellently. And I'm just like,
nice.
Oh my God. Because I remember seeing that episode of regular show for the first time, and like I watched Indiana Jones so many times. I'm just like, did they really just
I do joke? Like the new Cartoon Network shows that do that a lot. Teen Titans Go does it all the time, where we're watching movies now that I grew up with, and my kids are like, just like in Teen Titans. And it's like, oh boy.
Well, fun fact, I had just gotten back from seeing Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank, before this.
Yeah.
It's literally Blazing Saddles.
Oh, interesting.
The whole movie. And then you realize Mel Brooks co-wrote it.
Oh. So should I take my kids to see that?
I actually had a decent amount of fun watching
it. Okay, cool.
I just sat there. I did roll my eyes a couple of times. I'm like, are they really going to? Well, and then it started bringing back the trailer. I'm like, oh my God, the big fat sumo cat is Mongo. And I'm like, that's why they make a bunch of bean jokes and fart jokes. And then it just all started rushing to me. I'm like, oh my God.
That's so cool. All right. My kids want to see it, and I was kind of like, maybe.
It literally is Blazing Saddles. Like, they basically remade Blazing Saddles with cats and a samurai dog. Like,
cool.
I'm just like, there's literally gags lifted right from it. Because, like, the whole entire thing is he gets appointed the samurai of this town by an evil guy who's trying to get rid of the town. And I'm like,
yeah, that's it.
Wait.
Is there a deputy that's already in the town who is not really okay? Yes.
I think Samuel L. Jackson's character who just happens to be there and shows them the ropes. I'm sitting there like, wait a minute. This is just Blazing Saddles. And then the credits start rolling, and it's like written by and then written like with Mel Brooks. I'm like,
nice.
And Mel Brooks is in it. And every single line he says, I'm like, he had to have written that. That just sounds like a Mel Brooks line. And I'm just like, yeah. So, those kind of referential things. And getting back to like, this scene is so great because like, obviously it tests the person looking for it, right? And when Donovan drinks and then just turns into a decrepit corpse like that, and that's terrifying as a kid.
It really is. Unless you're my kids, because we were like, don't watch. Like when I was a kid, that I would always look away. And we showed them recently. We watched all three, we watched only two because I wouldn't show them Temple of Doom just yet. But we watched Raiders, and we told them not to look at the end and the face melting scene and him turning into this skeleton, and they're just like, yeah, that wasn't that scary. I thought you said it was going to be scary. Like, what? These kids, swear to God.
It's all other level. I couldn't even watch Lost World Jurassic Park when I was a kid. I couldn't get past the opening scene with the little girl and like the little tiny dinosaurs.
Mhm.
No, couldn't make it. But and then of course, he takes the one that looks like a carpenter's cup because it's not like Jesus had like money.
He didn't have the money and the jewels and the riches. He was
No,
kind of
and
against that.
yeah, and it's such a great moment too. And then like I love that Knight character, and that just feels something magical out of like
Hmm.
a Spielberg movie. It just has that sense to it. But I guess at this point, Nick, do you have any other main thoughts or things that you wanted to bring up about the film?
Oh boy, there's so many. The 4K rewatch was just beautiful, especially like that boat chase scene. I loved
Oh,
it. That chase scene is so much fun. I love how it goes through the boats and they're yelling at each other. It's a classic Spielberg. Um, One of my favorite parts of the whole movie, every time, and I cackle like a kid every time I hear it, or I see it, I should say, because it's the motorcycles chase after they escape from the prison, and they're being chased by those other motorcycles, and they've got the tandem bike thing, and he uses the thing and he sticks it through the wheel, and the guy flips up, and he's like, yeah, and he looks over at his dad, and his dad's just like, and he's like, ah, ah. I love that face that Connery makes, like, I can't believe you did that.
yeah.
And then for earlier when he shoots the guys and he's like, look what you just did. I can't believe what you just did. It's just so great.
And
The comedy throughout this movie is just so amazing. And
I was just going
they
to say
just do a
his
great
line
job
where he's
nailing
just like, "This is what you call archaeology." It's just like their clashing perspectives on what they do just is the icing on the cake
it really
between
is.
their relationship.
There's so many quotable lines. Like I dare you to measure, like, listen to everything I say in a week, and I've probably quoted this movie at least once. If it's not you, he's chosen poorly, he's chosen wisely. It's one of those two on regular. Like, it's just everything about this movie is so much fun, and like it really does disappoint me that we don't get more movies like this. So I am really excited for five. Like, I'm, holding my breath, but James Mangold is great. I really enjoyed Fleabag, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge is writing a bunch of stuff. I can't really quite figure out if she's just like doing touch-ups or if they actually had her write a significant portion of it, but she's so clever, and I'm really hoping that this one turns out good, because the last couple things Mangold has done have been great, between
Yep.
The Ford versus Ferrari and Logan.
Yep.
Um, and he did, I mean, it's not recent, but he did 310 to Yuma too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so like
Such a great
he's got
remake.
such a filmography that, like, it almost seems like, yeah, he should do the next Indiana Jones film. Like, this might be the breath of fresh air that we need, and who knows, if it does well, we might get more.
He is the kind of director that I remember when Ford v Ferrari came out and I watched that in a theater. I'm like, they don't make movies like this anymore. He has such a specific classic Hollywood sense of making movies, and not in like this feels dated kind of thing. It just feels like movie magic. It
Yeah,
feels that way. And you're right. When I heard Spielberg wasn't making, I'm like,
very
but
curious.
who?
Yeah,
And
like,
then
who are
when
we gonna
they
get?
got James Mangold, I'm like, genius. That
Yeah.
makes so much sense. Cause like whether it's Walk the Line or 310 to Yuma or Logan, and the Wolverine going off the rails in the third act wasn't his fault. Whoever wrote that movie and decided to make giant mech Silver Samurai and that horrible character, whatever the hell her name was, terrible.
Yeah.
Like that just should not have been in the movie. But like he has just a sense about him because like Logan is one of the best neo westerns I have ever seen, and Ford v Ferrari is just feels like a movie at a time. Like, you don't get stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just so perfect. Um, and I feel like it does bring me some hope. And not that Mads Mikkelsen hasn't been in bigger movies where they've wasted him, because, I don't think they really maximized his talents in like Doctor Strange
No.
or, Clash of the Titans, because he was
Oh, I
in,
forgot he was in that. Yes.
they had a
Mads
lot of
Mikkelsen
big
has not
name.
not been having a good guy picking his movies lately.
Well, and the thing is, like, all of the stuff that he does in like his native Denmark and stuff, he's a ridiculously good
Yeah.
actor.
That
And it excites me that
what was
he's
it,
going to
another
be,
round?
oh my God, another
That was so
round, The
great.
Hunt. He had another movie, Riders of Justice, that came out that like nobody saw. And that's
I
a
never heard of it.
crazy action movie. And he's fantastic in it. And like, if it, like, either you haven't seen Hannibal or you're like an obsessed fan of Hannibal. I feel like there's no in between there. And his Hannibal Lecter is like a whole other kind of thing. And him popping up as Grindelwald, as replacing Johnny Depp, was genius.
It
Like,
was. It's too bad they didn't use him though. Like he
like,
would have been the perfect evil wizard.
well, that's the thing. Like, he's in Secrets of Dumbledore, and he just chews up the screen every time he's on the screen. But like, to
Yeah.
be fair, he's not in
They
it.
didn't give him anything to do. Like
No,
it the
like,
movie wasn't giving him any favors.
I feel
He
like
was
the
great in it, but
one scene where he's with like Jude Law at the beginning, I'm
at the
like,
very beginning, it was amazing.
why? Why do you have both of these men in this movie perfectly cast and then not do more with them?
And not use them. Like, how are these two not the main characters of your franchise? Like,
That's a
who saw this whole script and was like, nah, we only need them in the first 5 minutes. And then at the end, they'll be great. Just bookend it with these two.
but I'm hopeful with James Mangold. I'm very skeptical of a 80-year-old Indiana Jones. I'm just glad he didn't die making this movie,
Yeah.
because
He tried.
honestly,
He surely did.
his track record recently in these movies has not been great, between Force Awakens and like him getting hurt in these movies. Just think Harrison Ford needs to like maybe retire, honestly. But
Yeah.
apparently he's going to be in the next prequel series Taylor Sheridan's making of Yellowstone. So like,
Interesting. Well, I mean, curmudgeonly old prospector. I don't know.
yeah,
He could do it. He's the right
rancher.
age.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
100%. But this feels like a weird thing, but like, if you haven't seen Indiana Jones or any of these, like, what are you doing at this point? But these are some of the most magical movies put to screen. And this is like, when you think of what Spielberg can do in terms of making movie magic, Raiders and Last Crusade are like there in terms of it. Now, leaving you all off with a couple recommendations. Nick, what would you like to recommend to the lovely people listening?
Well, I would definitely like to recommend a show that I've only seen the first 4 episodes of, but already am just like super hype on season 3 of The Umbrella Academy. It's just where they left off in season 2 with the idea of they've changed the past and they go back to the future and everything is different. There's a new family and living in their house with different powers.
Yeah.
I it was a cliffhanger that just really made me sad that we then had to wait like 3 years to find out what happened next. So when it came out, I was debating, do I rewatch season 2 or do I just jump right in?
Yeah.
And I decided I'm just going to jump right in. And I'm so glad I did, because as much as I would like to rewatch season 2, like I'm having so much fun with this season. The first 4 on their own are just great. The mystery of what's going on, how they're going to solve it, the chemistry that these characters have with each other. It's just so much fun. If you haven't seen any Umbrella Academy, start at the beginning and just plow your way through, because it's just a great show, and it feels fresh even though it's superheroes. like the superhero genre, everyone's like hot or cold on it. You know, either
Yeah.
you want to consume everything or you're so tired of them right now. Like this is a superhero show that it does a lot with time travel, so that's probably why I'm super into it. But it's just it's a fun time, and it's more original than a lot of the other stuff that's out there right now. So definitely check out Umbrella Academy season 3.
And it's like an inspired, darker X-Men kind of thing.
Yeah,
If Professor X was a twisted bastard.
yeah.
Like,
Some of the X-Men runs they like to toy with that idea, and I think that's why I am enjoying it because it does feel a lot like X-Men, which was one of my favorite comics growing up. And the crutch of season 3, I really love how in their universe they're a dysfunctional family because they had a terrible dad who didn't do a good job raising them. And then the crutch of this season is that he met them in the past, was like, no, I'm not doing that again. And he got other kids and did a different job, but did the same terrible job. Like,
yep.
just different. I love that. Like it's so much fun. They could have gone in 100 different ways that all could have been equally interesting, but the way they chose somehow ended up being the one that just really works. So it's really cool.
I couldn't help but try my best to get through this as soon as possible because I could not stop watching it. Like season 3, and it goes places. And I'm gonna leave it at that because I did finish it, and now I'm just like, what the hell are they going to do with season 4? I have some things about like one particular character. I wasn't the hugest fan of what they did with them, but a lot of the characters get so much to shine and just some new characters and stuff like that. My 2 recommendations, one for lighter watching and one for if you want to get emotional. One is Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, which is definitely the lighter one. If you love a good British comedy kind of thing, this is just Leslie Manville shows a complete other side to her because like I saw her in that what the hell was that, the name of it, with Liam Neeson and her as a married couple. That was a great drama, but she's also the sister in Phantom Thread, and she's like this stiff upper lipped kind of British woman. In this, she's just a charming person, and it's a charming British movie. So like if you like that kind of thing, it's a sweet easy watch, and it has some good themes in it too, and there's some pretty great talented people in it, like Jason Isaacs, who I absolutely love in anything he pops up in.
I like him a lot.
He's a lot of fun in it too as one of the supporting characters. And then I watched The Impossible for one of my podcasts that I do about that tsunami in Thailand.
The one with Ewan McGregor and
Naomi Watts.
And young Tom Holland.
Yes, and he was great.
That he was. Oh my gosh, that movie is horrifying.
Yeah.
As a parent, especially, I watched that. My wife had to leave. She's like, I'm going to bed. I can't watch this. It was horrifying. And I loved it. It was so good.
One scene brought me to tears. Like I'm like just sitting
Just
on
one?
my couch. Like, and I honestly, that doesn't happen to me much. I've teared up twice in a theater my whole entire life. And one of them was the end of Logan. Because that's how much I love Wolverine and how much that meant to me. I'm named after the movie Shane.
Oh, hey,
And like most of my life in college, like I had full Wolverine mutton chops until I started working full time. So now they're just like reasonably sized mutton chops. But like watching that movie, I'm just like, I can't. And just like, the line when he says, "This is what it feels like," and he had like holding her hand. I'm just like, yep, here they come. Tears. And then I did tear up at the end of Endgame. And it wasn't Tony. It was actually Cap getting his dance.
No, really?
That really moved me. I almost choked up the second time watching Endgame when Ant-Man sees his daughter as like a teenager. I don't know what about that scene just got me. But like I'm sitting on my couch at home watching The Impossible, and there's one hug in it that I'm just like, yep. They just
Yeah,
start
no,
streaming down, just like,
I'm a bit of a crier when it comes to movie. My wife makes fun of me. Like the one that always gets me is Toy Story 3. Not not the normal parts, but when Andy's in his car about to leave and Bonnie holds up Woody's hand to wave, that gets me every time, to the point where now I look away, because if I watch the lead up to that, I'm a mess. And my wife teases me every time. She's like, "Oh, you're not crying this time." I'm like, "It's because I wasn't looking."
so The Impossible is a hard watch. Like it's a
very hard
hard watch, but like that takes you on an emotional journey. And Jay, it's because like I have seen more than just a Monster Calls because I saw Fallen Kingdom. But like I'm not holding that against J.A. Bayona. But J.A. Bayona is, I love a Monster Calls so much, and that moved me so much. Not, I didn't realize going into this he directed this, and then watching, I'm like, this is a beautiful movie.
I was 8 years
Horrifying.
old when I found that out. I didn't even know. I thought that somebody else had directed that for some reason, but he is good. I really also enjoy The Monster's Call, and after many years removed, having just rewatched Fallen Kingdom, it's still the stupidest movie I've ever seen in my life, but I really enjoyed what he did with it. Like the horror elements especially. I think he did a really fine job.
He's a great
So,
director.
he is.
Whatever committee wrote the script for Fallen Kingdom was just,
It's just one of those movies now, like it's reached like Moonfall levels, where I will now watch it because I know I'm going to laugh the whole way through. And not with the movie. I'm definitely laughing at the movie, but it's just a
honestly, seeing
fun,
Moonfall,
funny movie.
I wish there was more opportunities for me to laugh at the movie.
Oh
Like,
man, you got. I was listening to when you were on SiftPop talking to Aaron about it, and I'm like pounding my neck, like, no, you have to go with a bunch of friends, and you have to get drunk, and you have to just not be afraid to yell at the screen.
I saw that on a Sunday night with two of my best friends in a 400-seat theater, and there was 5 people in it, including the 3 of us. So like, and they were like at the top of the stadium, and I'm like, we had no bones to pick about saying anything during the movie because, like, one, they definitely couldn't hear us, and two,
Yeah.
that movie makes me so mad because, as somebody from New Jersey, this can be like irrationally mad. Screw all these movies that take cheap shots at New Jersey. And,
I know, right?
And like that point where it's like little girl, like, I don't want to move to New Jersey. I'm like, F this little girl.
Hey.
F this movie. I'm just like, oh my God.
Me and my buddy, we just had so much fun. We were doing Mystery Science Theater 3000 the whole time. Like we had a comment for everything, and we just had the best time. I don't think I've had a better time at a movie in a long time.
So the last thing I'm going to say on this show, and if you don't want Moonfall spoiled for you, stop listening to the video.
It falls. The moon falls.
Because it's so spoiler. Because it's an alien construction project, and it's just like, what? This, like, that movie jumped 50 sharks. I'm just like,
yeah, it did.
Are you kidding me? Oh,
the movie, the overall theme of the movie is conspiracy theorists are correct, and we should all listen to them because clearly they know what they're talking about, especially the stoned ones.
Oh, and Samuel Tarly becomes a human computer.
I love how they set it up for a sequel. Like they thought they were gonna get a sequel.
It felt like the same horrible sequel plug at the end of Independence Day Resurgence. We're gonna take the fight to them. I'm like, no, you're not.
No, you're not.
Nobody's gonna green like that. So yeah, terrible. Oh God. See, I had more fun talking about it in the last 5 minutes than I did the whole entire time watching the movie. But Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was a good time.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.